Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. The first time I noticed it, we were at her cousin's wedding. Ashley had on this deep green dress that turned heads, and I had the job of keeping her wine glass full and not stepping on anyone's toes during the slow dances. She laughed a lot that night, but not with me. She laughed at me. Jake's best quality, she said during a toast. He lets me shine while he blends in with the furniture. The table erupted in laughter. I did too, but it didn't reach my chest. I let it slide, told myself it was a joke, that everyone teases their spouse sometimes. But it wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. Back home, I was the guy who did the dishes, vacuumed the living room twice because the lines weren't straight, and reminded her mother's birthday was coming up. Ashley loved having a man who made her life easier. At least, that's what she told her friends. But when it was just us, she wore exhaustion like armor, flinging it around as a reason for every snapped comment or sideways glance. "You're too soft," she once said while folding laundry beside me. "You don't have that fire, Jake. That man energy." I raised an eyebrow. "I built our patio from scratch last summer." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, and then you cried when you hit your thumb with a hammer." I didn't cry. I swore loudly. But why argue with someone already convinced of your weakness? Still, I tried. That's what hurts the most now. I tried. I booked this cruise because she said she needed something new, something exciting. "We're stuck in a rut," she told me, arms crossed, standing in the hallway like a manager giving a performance review. "Maybe we need a change of scenery." So I surprised her with a 12-night Caribbean cruise in a balcony suite with all the extras. Champagne in the room, spa credit, even snorkeling gear she'd once mentioned wanting to try. She smiled when I told her, said all the right things, hugged me. But later that night, I overheard her on the phone with her sister. "Jake's being sweet again." "Yeah, another grand gesture. He's trying, but it's like, I don't know. The spark's just not there anymore." My chest tightened. I stood in the hallway outside our bedroom, the echo of her voice sharp and final. The spark's not there anymore. On the cruise, I try to recapture it. Dinners on the upper deck, couples massages, hiking up waterfalls in St. Lucia. I made her laugh one afternoon when a seagull stole half my sandwich, and for a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, we were climbing out of the fog. But then came the karaoke. "I signed up," she said casually one night while brushing her hair. "Cada que con that. It's supposed to be fun. I need something that's just for me this week." I blinked. I thought this whole cruise was for both of us. Yeah, but I'm kind of sick of couple stuff. It's all, matching towels and holding hands during yoga. I need a little space. Something cold and familiar settled in my gut. But I smiled. "Sure, space is good." She started disappearing for hours in the evening. "Rehearsal," she said. "The band's helping me with a song. They're nice guys. Super talented." I stayed in the room. Read. Looked at the stars by myself. Listened to the ocean like it might give me some answers. Then came the night of her first performance. She wore a low-cut dress I hadn't seen in a year, heels I didn't even know she packed. Her lipstick was darker than usual. She looked not like my wife, but someone who used to be her. "Wish me luck," she whispered and kissed my cheek. She sang well. I'll give her that. I clapped. Everyone did. But later that night, I couldn't sleep. Something gnawed at the back of my neck like a slow, deliberate warning. I slipped out of our cabin and headed toward the lounge where the karaoke folks rehearsed. The green room door was slightly ajar. I heard laughter, then a moan. I peeked through the crack and froze. Ashley, my wife, sitting on the lap of the lead guitarist. His shirt was unbuttoned. Her hand rested on his chest. Her mouth was on his. Her dress was bunched at her hips. My heart stopped. Then it roared. I backed away slowly, quietly. No confrontación. No yelling. Just silence. Because at that moment, something inside me didn't break. It shifted. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark cabin, staring at the gentle sway of the ceiling shadows, listening to the ocean lull against the hull. Ashley slipped in sometime after 2. I didn't move. Neither did she. She didn't notice I was awake. Or maybe she didn't care. I heard the zipper of her dress, the quiet shuffle of heels kicked off, the soft thud of her climbing into bed. She didn't touch me. Didn't whisper a word. Just curled up on her side, back facing mine, and within minutes she was breathing steady. My mind screamed, but my body stayed still. I didn't know what to do with the images now burned into my brain. The sight of her on him, the hunger in her expression. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was something deliberate, and somehow I wasn't even surprised. The next morning, I watched her pour orange juice like nothing had changed. She wore a bikini top under a loose wrap, her sunglasses already perched like she was ready for the camera. "You coming to the pool deck?" she asked, casual as ever. I nodded, said I'd be up in a bit. She kissed my cheek, then left. I sat down, hands trembling slightly as I sipped my coffee, trying to act like I hadn't watched the foundation of my marriage rot away under neon green room lighting. That afternoon, I walked around the upper deck alone. Families laughed in the pool. Couples sunbathed, reading side by side. I drifted like a ghost. And that's when I saw her. Jessica, the cruise director. She was on the mic earlier that week, rallying passengers for salsa lessons. Her voice was bright, warm, always a little flirty, but not in a forced way. She was walking toward the bow, clipboard in hand, when she caught me staring. "You look like someone just told you the bar ran out of rum," she said, stopping beside me. I laughed, because it was easier than explaining. Something like that. She tilted her head. "You all right?" I paused, then shrugged. "Just vacation stuff. Not everything's as relaxing as it looks in the brochure." She studied me for a moment, then smiled. "Well, if you need to disappear for a bit, I know all the secret spots." Then she winked and walked off. I thought about her words all evening. Ashley skipped dinner, said the band was doing a late rehearsal. I nodded, told her to have fun. She smiled, like it was normal, like this was what couples did now. She didn't even pretend anymore. Maybe she thought I was too weak to confront her. Maybe she hoped I'd stay passive and let her live out whatever twisted fantasy she'd stumbled into. But what she didn't realize was that every second of her deception carved away at something inside me. Not pain, not jealousy, just clarity. The next day, I bumped into Jessica again, this time near the spa. "You're everywhere," she said, laughing. I smiled. I needed a distraction. "You still offering secret escape spots?" She glanced at her watch. 10 minutes. Meet me by the cruise stairwell. Or something light. That's how I found myself walking behind her through the hidden corridors of the ship, past unmarked doors and quiet voices. She led me into a staff-only sauna suite, smaller, quieter, with soft lighting and a mist in the air. She tossed her towel over a bench and sat down, her expression suddenly serious. "You're not the only guy on this ship trying to figure out how everything fell apart," she said softly. "I've seen enough married couples fake it through cruises to recognize the look." I leaned back, heat licking at my skin. "You ever feel like you gave everything to someone and they just misplaced it?" Jessica looked over at me. "Yeah, I married that guy once. We talked, for hours, about everything. Her job, my marriage, the band, the green room. I didn't leave anything out." She didn't flinch. She didn't pity me. At one point, she reached for my hand. Not romantically, just a quiet show of understanding. "You deserve better," she whispered. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The steam filled the silence with its own rhythm. That night, I didn't go back to the cabin. And the next morning, I signed up for the karaoke contest. Ashley laughed when she saw my name on the list. "You?" she asked, brows raised. "Didn't know you were the singing type." I smiled. "There's a lot you don't know." She rolled her eyes and walked away. But Jessica saw it. She saw the shift. And when I told her the song I wanted to sing, her grin stretched from ear to ear. "Oh, this is going to be epic." We started rehearsing in secret. Her on guitar, me on vocals. The song was bold, blunt, razor sharp, every lyric a blade. Before he cheats. I wasn't hiding anymore. This wasn't just about payback. It was about reclaiming who I was before Ashley turned me into wallpaper. And the final night was approaching fast. It's strange how quickly the brain can shift from disbelief to acceptance when the evidence is undeniable. In the past, I might have played mental gymnastics to convince myself Ashley's distant behavior was stress or boredom, something harmless. But now, After seeing her lips on another man and hearing her laugh from behind that green room door like she hadn't just gutted our vows, I saw everything differently. Her late nights weren't innocent. Her growing indifference wasn't passive. She was cheating actively, fully, unapologetically. And once I knew that, all the pieces of her behavior over the past year started clicking into place with a cruel sort of clarity. She started leaving the house more often, claiming errands or spontaneous girls' nights. But her perfume lingered longer than usual when she got home, and her phone always had a new passcode. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought good husbands didn't snoop. Now I knew better. Sometimes silence isn't noble. It's just letting yourself drown. On the ship, I noticed even more. Ashley's rehearsals with the band weren't just casual. She brought them coffee, wore dresses she'd packed without telling me, and laughed just a little too loudly whenever the guitarist, Cody, that was his name, was nearby. He was younger, tattooed, with that effortless swagger guys like me didn't come equipped with. I wasn't jealous. Not of him. I was disgusted. Not because she found someone else, but because she thought so little of me that she didn't even bother hiding it well. I followed her one evening. Not close, just enough to keep her in view. She said she was going to dinner alone. Needed space again. But she didn't go to the buffet or the open-air cafe like she usually did. She went below deck. Crew level. She wasn't supposed to be there. No passengers were. That's when I knew she wasn't just reckless. She was comfortable. Too comfortable. I didn't follow all the way. I turned back and took the long route through the promenade deck, my mind spinning. If she was willing to risk sneaking into a restricted area just to be with him, then this wasn't some flirty fling. This was deliberate. This was betrayal by design. When I got back to the room, I started going through her things. Not out of spite, but to find the truth I already suspected. I opened the drawer beneath the vanity where she kept her jewelry and makeup. Tucked behind a silk pouch was a card. Handwritten. Can't wait to make music with you tonight. Just like last night. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting wasn't hers. I stared at it. The words weren't romantic. They were cocky. Intimate in a way that told me this wasn't new. Not their first kiss. Not their second rendezvous. Maybe not even their first vacation together. The idea that she might have done this before. On previous trips, weekends she claimed were with her sister, or nights where she said she was working late, hit me like a punch to the chest. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, holding that card like it was the final puzzle piece. And in a way, it was. Jessica knocked 10 minutes later. She saw the look on my face and didn't ask questions. Just sat beside me in silence. I showed her the card. She read it, her expression unreadable. Then she looked at me and said, "You still want to go through with it?" I nodded. Now more than ever. We spent the next 2 hours rehearsing. She had access to a private rehearsal room. Perks of being the director. The acoustics were better, the lighting sharper. She tuned her guitar while I ran through the lyrics. Each verse felt like a release, a confession wrapped in melody. I wasn't just singing a song. I was telling the truth in a way Ashley would never be able to talk her way out of. At one point, Jessica stopped strumming and looked at me. "You know, this isn't just about embarrassing her." "I know," I said. "It's about reclaiming yourself." I smiled just slightly. "That's the plan." We ran the number again. This time, I didn't miss a note. Later that night, Ashley came in late again. Her hair was tousled, her cheeks flushed. I pretended to be asleep. She didn't say a word as she slipped under the covers. I listened to her breathing even out. She never asked where I'd been, never noticed the rehearsal flyer sticking out of my suitcase. Maybe she was too wrapped up in her own fantasy to care. But in 3 days, she'd care. She'd care when the stage lights hit, when the audience turned to see her husband walking out with a mic in hand and a woman on guitar who knew every word, every beat. She'd care when I looked her dead in the eyes during the chorus, when the crowd started to cheer, when the lyrics pierced deeper than any confrontation ever could. She'd care when the only sound louder than the music was the silence of everyone finally seeing her for what she really was. The morning of the performance, I woke before the sun. The cruise ship rocked gently beneath me, a rhythm I'd grown numb to. Ashley was still asleep, her hair sprawled across the pillow, one leg half draped over the edge like she'd just collapsed in a bed without care. I watched her for a moment, not out of love, but out of curiosity. How long had she practiced that face? The peaceful sleeper, the loyal wife, the woman with nothing to hide. I slipped out of bed, quietly grabbed my notebook, and headed for the top deck, where the breeze was sharp and the horizon was clean. I needed clarity, one final moment of stillness before the storm. Jessica met me for breakfast. She looked casual, but there was an edge to her smile now. We'd become something like co-conspirators, two people orbiting the same betrayal, finding a strange comfort in the truth neither of us had expected. "You good?" she asked, sipping coffee across from me. "Better than I should be," I said. "Nervous?" "No, just ready." The final karaoke performance wasn't just a ship event. It was a highlight. Passengers had been buzzing about it all week, voting on their favorites, sharing rumors about surprise acts. Ashley had made it past the first round easily, thanks to her charm, her voice, and the way she batted her eyes at the band. She thought she had it in the bag. She'd even mentioned to me, casually, "You'll clap for me tonight, right?" I told her, "You'll hear me." What she didn't know was that while she'd been sneaking into the crew quarters, I'd been preparing something far more public. Jessica and I secured the closing slot. "We're calling it a surprise finale," she explained to the event coordinator, who just laughed and said, "Just don't set off the fire alarm." That afternoon, we ran the song twice more. Jessica adjusted the tempo slightly, gave it a sharper edge. "We're not just singing," she said. "We're telling a story." And we were. Every lyric, every beat was a mirror I was going to hold up to Ashley's carefully crafted image. But this time, the lighting would be unforgiving. After rehearsal, I stopped by the ship's photography kiosk. I'd requested a print from one of the candid shots they took early in the cruise. Ashley and me during sunset, smiling like we were still in love. I took that photo, folded it once, then slid it into my jacket pocket. It wasn't for her. It was for me. A snapshot of what I thought I had, and a reminder of how easily it was all replaced. Ashley was in front of the mirror getting ready when I returned to the room. She wore a red dress, tight at the waist, high on the thigh. She looked over her shoulder at me. "You going to the show tonight?" "Wouldn't miss it," I said. She smirked. "You like my song? It's a classic. I'm sure it'll be unforgettable." She caught her reflection again and smiled. Maybe she thought things were normal, that I'd forgiven her without a word, that I was too weak to act. She had no idea I'd already taken a microphone. That evening, the theater was packed. People held cocktails and wore sunburns and cruise lanyards, but they were buzzing like they were about to see something real. I stood backstage with Jessica, watching as Ashley stepped up to perform her set. She chose a power ballad, dramatic, full of long notes and fake emotion. People clapped. Some even stood. I didn't. As she took her bow and flashed the band a smile, she didn't notice me step behind the curtain. The MC took the stage, announcing the surprise finale duet. "These two didn't compete earlier, but they've cooked up something special just for tonight," he said. "Let's hear it for Jake and Jessica." The lights dimmed. The crowd applauded. Ashley froze, and Jessica strummed the first note. I walked out with the mic, found Ashley in the front row, locked eyes with her as I sang the first line. Right now, he's probably slow dancing with a bleached blonde tramp. She didn't blink at first, just stared. But as the lyrics unfolded, her expression started to shift. Confusion gave way to realization. Her mouth parted. Her hands gripped the edge of her seat. Jessica leaned into the guitar, lips curling into a knowing smirk. The entire theater started to catch on. The whispers, the laughter, the clapping in time to the beat. But I wasn't watching them. I was watching her, and I didn't miss a single word. The song ended in a thunder of applause that rattled the walls, but I couldn't hear any of it. All I heard was the sound of my own heartbeat, steady and calm, like a drumline marking the moment. I stood center stage, microphone still in hand, breathing hard but smiling. Jessica gave one final strum, then looked over at me and nodded. The lights hit her hair just right, and I realized this woman who'd stepped in my storm had been the only real thing in weeks. I turned toward the audience, thanked them with a slight bow, and walked off stage. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. Ashley wasn't in her seat anymore. She'd left midway through the last chorus. I saw her slip out the side aisle like a shadow, fleeing the light. I could have ended it there. Let her run. Let the silence follow her like a sentence without punctuation. But that wasn't me anymore. The man she thought she married might have stood down. The man she betrayed wouldn't. I found her by the portside bar, pacing. Her hands were clenched into fists, her eyes wild. The moment she saw me, she rushed forward. "What the hell was that?" she snapped. "Truth," I said calmly, loud and public. "You humiliated me in front of the entire ship." I nodded. "And yet, somehow, that's still less than what you did to me in private." She scoffed. "This is petty, Jake. This isn't you." "No, Ashley," I said, stepping closer. "This is exactly me. The version of me you never took seriously. The version who watched you sneak around and lie and pretend like I didn't matter." She crossed her arms, trying to gather control. "So what? You embarrassed me in public. Now we're even? Is that the goal?" "There is no even," I said, "because while you were crawling around with a guitarist in crew-only areas, I was still waking up every day hoping you'd love me again." Her mouth twitched. For a second, I thought she might say something real. "But no. You've always been dramatic," she muttered. "This cruise was supposed to fix things, not blow everything up. You think I wanted this?" I asked, laughing bitterly. "I booked this cruise hoping we'd reconnect. You signed up for karaoke and reconnected with a man who doesn't even know your last name." She flinched, and in that moment I saw it. Not regret, not sorrow, panic, because for the first time, she realized she'd lost control. "You've been talking to that director, haven't you?" she hissed. "Jessica. She's behind this. She didn't make you cheat, Ashley. You did that all on your own." Her lip curled, a weak attempt to regain her footing. "You think people are going to take your side? You think the kids would understand you doing this?" "I haven't told them anything yet," I said, "but I will. And when I do, it won't be a song. It'll be a list of facts. Like how their mother kissed another man behind a locked door while their father was booking couple massages. Or how she laughed while lying to his face." Ashley backed up, the color draining from her cheeks. "I'm going to file for divorce when we get home," I said flatly. "And I have everything I need. Screenshots, photos, witnesses." Jessica saw it all. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I stepped closer, leaned in just enough. "I already have." Then I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there like a shattered mirror, too many cracks to fix. Backstage, Jessica was waiting. Her eyes searched mine like she was bracing for regret. "Everything all right?" she asked softly. "Better than it's been in months," I said. "Thanks to you." She smiled. "You were electric up there. I meant what I sang." "I know," she said. She did too. We stood in silence for a moment, the noise of the crowd still humming behind us. Then Jessica slipped a small card into my hand. "My number," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "For after the cruise. In case you ever want to talk to someone who saw you when it mattered." I took it, not as a prize, not as a replacement, but as a reminder that even after everything, there was still something ahead. A new chorus, a new beginning, one I'd sing on my own terms. The day after the performance, the ship felt smaller. Not physically, but emotionally. The hallways seemed narrower, the glances longer, conversations quieter as I passed. Word had spread faster than I expected. Not just about the duet, but about what it meant. Cruise gossip travels fast, especially when it's wrapped in melody and scandal. I got nods from people I hadn't spoken to all week. Smirks from a group of college girls near the ice cream stand. A handshake from a gray-haired man who said, "You got guts, son." I nodded in return, not needing the validation, but still feeling its weight. Ashley was nowhere to be seen that morning. Not at the breakfast buffet, not on the pool deck, where she usually sunned herself like she was on display. I figured she was hiding, probably somewhere near the spa, or tucked into one of the reading nooks with sunglasses and a scowl. I didn't care. Her invisibility was a gift. I spent the morning walking, thinking. I called my lawyer back home and left a message to schedule a meeting. I didn't want to wait. This wasn't a wound I wanted to nurse. It was a rot I needed to cut out clean. Jessica texted me mid-morning. Just a simple "you okay?" followed by a smiley face. I replied, "Better than I've been in a long time." No need for anything more. By early afternoon, Ashley found me. I was on the observation deck, leaning against the railing, staring out at the endless blue. She approached quietly, but I felt her presence before she spoke. "We need to talk," she said, her voice softer than usual, missing that sharp edge. I didn't turn. "Then talk." She hesitated, probably not used to not being the one in control of a conversation. "I don't know what happened to us, Jake." I exhaled slowly, still not facing her. "You happened to us. You chose someone else, then lied about it. Then kept lying. There's not much mystery left in that." She stepped closer. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. And you betrayed me behind closed doors," I said, turning to face her. At least I had the spine to do it where people could see. Her eyes welled with something I couldn't immediately read. Shame, anger, maybe both. "I never meant for it to go that far. You never meant to get caught," I corrected. "That's not the same thing." She looked down. I felt like we were drifting apart. You were so predictable, so content. I needed something more." I clenched my jaw. "So you found it in a guy who can barely string 3 chords together without smirking? That's your something more." "It wasn't just him," she said quickly. "It was how I felt. Alive. Like someone saw me again." I nodded. "Yeah, that's exactly how I felt singing on that stage. Funny how that works." Her face cracked then. A twitch of the mouth. A blink that took too long. "I was wrong," she said, finally. "I know that now." I studied her for a long moment. Not the way a husband looks at his wife, but the way a survivor studies the wreckage after the storm's passed. "It's too late, Ashley." She stepped forward, almost reaching for me, but stopped herself. "We've built so much. We have a life." "We had a life," I said. "Now we have a decision to make about how to separate it." Her shoulders dropped. "You're really divorcing me?" "I already started the process." "But Jake, we can fix this." "No," I interrupted. "You don't get to break something that badly and then beg to fix it only when it threatens your comfort." She looked stunned. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't shaking. And that made it worse for her. She'd expected rage, or maybe even desperate forgiveness. Instead, she got resolve. Something she couldn't manipulate. "We could go to therapy," she tried again. "You needed therapy before the green room. You needed therapy before you lied to my face while wearing my ring. Now, you need to accept consequences." She didn't respond this time. Just stood there, arms at her sides, lips slightly parted, like she'd walked into a scene where she was no longer the star. I turned back toward the sea. "You should probably go. People are staring." She glanced behind her, then nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I know," I said, not looking. "But that's not enough anymore." She left, and with each step she took away from me, the weight on my chest lifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't devastated. I was light. Free. Jessica met me later near the front of the ship. We sat together on a bench, watching the sun begin its descent. She didn't ask how it went. She didn't need to. We just sat there, side by side, letting the wind wrap around us like a new chapter turning its first page. The cruise ended like it had never happened. Passengers disembarked with sunburns and souvenirs, smiles plastered on tired faces as they pulled suitcases toward customs. Ashley and I walked off the ship separately without a word. She'd packed in silence, each zipper tug like a warning. I didn't rush. I didn't even say goodbye. We rode the shuttle to the airport in the same row, but different worlds, separated by a hollow space filled with things we'd never say again. On the flight home, I put in headphones and stared out the window while she scrolled endlessly on her phone, likely drafting whatever version of our story she planned to tell next. Once we landed, I went home long enough to gather the rest of my things. She stayed at her sister's, giving me space to cool down, as she called it in a curt text I didn't answer. Cooling down wasn't the problem. I'd been cold for weeks. What I needed was movement, resolution. The next morning, I walked into the law office with a folder full of evidence and zero hesitation. My attorney, Karen, was calm, sharp, and refreshingly blunt. She reviewed everything: photos, timestamps, the note, even a copy of the karaoke performance posted by a passenger who'd caught the entire finale. When she finished, she closed the folder and looked up at me with a faint smile. "You have a very strong case." I nodded. "I'm not interested in revenge. I just want a clean break." She raised a brow. You're not getting dragged into a fight? No. But I'm not walking away empty-handed either. We filed within the week. Served papers to Ashley through her workplace because she'd blocked my number after a string of guilt-riddled messages went unanswered. She called once, just once, leaving a voicemail laced with outrage and desperation. I can't believe you're doing this without even talking to me. We were married, Jake. We have history. You can't just erase me like this. I didn't respond. The paperwork had already spoken louder than I ever could. She hired a lawyer, of course. Someone flashy, expensive, the kind who looked more like a television actor than someone who understood family law. Within days, they filed a counterclaim full of dramatic language, accusations of emotional neglect, marital abandonment, and even a claim that I'd humiliated her publicly in a reckless act of vengeance. I read through the pages with a strange kind of detachment. It was like watching someone try to rewrite a movie I'd starred in. Karen wasn't fazed. Let them posture, she said. They're hoping you'll get rattled and settle quietly. They don't know me, I said. Not anymore. The first mediation session was tense. Ashley sat across from me in a tailored black dress, her lawyer whispering confidently in her ear. She didn't look at me. Not until the mediator asked if either party wanted to speak before discussions began. I stood, slow and deliberate. This marriage ended the moment she decided I was no longer enough, I said, voice steady. Not because I changed, but because I stayed loyal. While she wandered, her lawyer jumped in, objecting to the emotional framing. Karen calmly laid out the evidence. Each file, each document, each photo. The mediator skimmed through them with furrowed brows. Ashley finally looked at me then, and I saw it. Realization. Not regret, not sadness, just the dawning fear of losing control. It tried to stall, claimed the photos weren't time-stamped, that the note could have been fabricated. Karen produced metadata and copies of cruise ship event logs, GPS data from my phone showing where I'd been and when. The mediator sat back, folded his hands, and said, "It's compelling." Ashley shifted in her seat. I was unhappy. He ignored me for years. I gave you everything, I said calmly. And when that wasn't enough, you took more. We didn't reach an agreement that day, but I walked out with leverage. The next round of talks was different. Their tone changed. Their demands softened. She stopped trying to paint herself as the wounded spouse and started asking for things like fair equity and consideration. Her lawyer pushed for half of the shared accounts. Karen pushed back with the fact that I had already pulled my share prior to filing, legally, and that Ashley's infidelity, documented and deliberate, could impact distribution in our state. In private, Ashley called me again. "We don't have to make this ugly," she said, voice trembling. "We can figure something out. I don't want to fight you." "You already did," I said, "and you lost." It wasn't cruel. It was factual, and facts had become my armor. We settled after 6 weeks. I got the house. Full custody rotation. She got her car, her portion of the remaining assets, and a quiet agreement to keep our kids out of the mess. No public filings beyond what was required. No dragging through court. Just signatures. Closure. The final meeting took place in a sterile room with beige walls and ticking clocks. She signed first. Her hand shook. I signed last. Mine didn't. When it was done, she looked at me one last time. "You're not the man I married." "You're right," I said. "That man would have forgiven you." And then I walked out, lighter than I'd felt in years. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.